The obstacle is the way, Marcus Aurelius. What if I told you that the most boring, most invisible, most overlooked job in the world was actually the door to everything you ever wanted? What if the very thing that seemed like a punishment was in fact a gift wrapped in darkness? This is the story of a man named Daniel, a man who once sat alone in the cold, wearing a faded uniform, holding a flashlight worth less than a cup of coffee, and who later stood in the light of 1,000 cameras, celebrated by millions. His name was Daniel, but the world once knew him only as the Watchman. The city never noticed Daniel. He was 31 years old, living in a 2-room apartment with walls so thin he could hear his neighbors' arguments and lullabies at the same time. He had tried many things before landing this job: a failed construction business, a small grocery stall that burned down in a fire, 2 years of savings swallowed by a partner who vanished overnight. Life had not been gentle with him. Now he sat every night from 10 in the evening until 6 in the morning in a small glass booth at the entrance of a large industrial warehouse. His job was simple: check IDs, press a button to open the gate, write names in a logbook, and stay awake. That was it. No glory, no applause, no promotions on the horizon. His colleagues at the warehouse called him the Shadow, not with cruelty, but with indifference. He was simply there, like a lamppost or a security camera, noticed only when something went wrong. His family had stopped asking about his plans. His old friends had moved on to careers, families, apartments with balconies. At family gatherings, when someone asked what Daniel was doing, his mother would change the subject gently, like turning down the volume on a difficult song. At night, alone in that glass booth, Daniel had 2 choices: despair or think. He chose to think. "It is not that I'm so smart, but I stay with the questions much longer." Albert Einstein. Inside the booth, between the arrivals of trucks and the scribbling of names, Daniel began to carry a small notebook. At first, he used it to write down frustrations, the anger of a man who felt cheated by life. But slowly, something shifted. He started observing. Every truck that came in at midnight carried something: goods from factories, raw materials, packages heading to shops. He started asking drivers questions, small ones at first. Where do you come from? What does this cargo cost? Who buys this? How much does it sell for? The drivers, bored and tired from long roads, were happy to talk. Within 6 months, Daniel had filled 3 notebooks. He had quietly learned more about supply chains, warehouse logistics, and market gaps than most business school graduates. He had no internet certification, no MBA, only a flashlight, a gate, and time. Aristotle once said, "We are what we repeatedly do. Excellence, then, is not an act, but a habit." Daniel's habit was curiosity. Every night, he turned his booth into a classroom. He read books by flashlight when the gate was quiet. He listened to audiobooks on an old phone with a cracked screen. He studied how warehouses worked, why they lost money, how small logistics companies in other countries had turned a few trucks into empires. His uniform never changed. His pay never changed, but his mind was becoming something extraordinary. Then the hardest year came. His father fell ill. Medical bills arrived like uninvited guests who never left. Daniel's small salary covered rent and medicine, but no more. There were nights he ate bread and tea and called that dinner. There were mornings he walked home from his shift in the winter cold because he could not afford the bus. He wanted to quit. More than once he stood at the gate, looked at the frozen road stretching into the darkness, and thought, "What is the point?" Rumi wrote, "The wound is the place where the light enters you." Daniel did not know Rumi then, but he understood the feeling that something inside him was being broken open, and through that crack, something stubborn and fierce was growing.
He did not quit. Instead, he wrote in his notebook, "I am not stuck here, I am being prepared here." He repeated it like a prayer. He penned it inside the booth above the logbook where he had written 10,000 names of people passing through. One evening, the warehouse owner, a busy, distracted man named Mr. Kareem, arrived late at night for an emergency inspection. A shipment had gone missing. The warehouse manager was panicking.
Daniel, calm as always, opened his logbook. Without being asked, he traced the exact timeline of every vehicle that had entered and exited over the past 72 hours, cross-referenced with his own private notes about unusual driver behavior. He had noticed 3 nights ago that one driver had lingered too long near Bay 7. He had written it down because he always wrote things down. Mr. Kareem stared at Daniel. "How do you know all this?" Daniel shrugged. "I watch. It's my job." The shipment was recovered. The responsible driver was identified. The warehouse lost nothing. Mr. Kareem did not forget. Luck is what happens when preparation meets opportunity. Seneca. 2 months later, Mr. Kareem called Daniel into his office. Not the booth, the office. He offered him a position as operations coordinator. It was not a dream job. It paid modestly more, but it was a door. Daniel took it. Within a year, he had redesigned the warehouse's entire intake system, reducing errors by 40%. He identified 3 suppliers who were quietly overcharging and renegotiated contracts. He trained 12 new employees. He did not just do his job, he transformed it. Mr. Kareem promoted him again and then again. But Daniel's eyes were always beyond the warehouse walls. With his savings, his notebooks full of years of research, and a single small loan from a cousin who believed in him, Daniel launched a logistics consulting company. His first client was Mr. Kareem. His second came through a driver he had befriended years ago in the cold. His third was a recommendation from the second. Word of mouth is the oldest form of marketing, and Daniel's work spoke louder than any advertisement. Within 3 years, his company operated in 4 cities. Within 5 years, it was national. His story, the watchman who built an empire from a glass booth, was featured in a business magazine, then a newspaper, then a television program. People could not believe it. They asked him, "How did you do it?" He always gave the same answer. "I never left the booth. I only expanded what the booth meant." Fall 7 times, stand up 8. Japanese proverb. The night Daniel received his industry's highest entrepreneurship award, he stood on a stage before 500 people in a gleaming hall. He wore a suit now, not a uniform. The flashlight was gone, replaced by a podium microphone. But in his breast pocket, folded and worn soft at the edges, was a single page from his first notebook, the one he had written in that glass booth in the middle of a cold night when everything seemed impossible. He held it up. "This paper is older than my company," he said. "I wrote it on a night I almost gave up. I wrote, 'I am not stuck here. I am being prepared here.'" The hall went silent. Some of you are in your booth right now. Some of you are sitting in the most invisible, the most overlooked, the most underestimated version of your life. You feel like time is passing and the world is moving without you. He paused. "But I want you to understand something. The watchman sees everything. Everyone else is passing through. You are the one who stays. And the one who stays long enough and pays attention deeply enough and refuses to surrender, that person learns things no one else learns. The secret of getting ahead is getting started." Mark Twain. Your booth is not your prison. Your booth is your university. The applause began slowly and then rose like a wave. The story of Daniel is not a fairy tale. Across this world, in every language and every time zone, there are people sitting in their smallest, most forgotten chapter and turning it into the foundation of something great. The philosopher Epictetus was born a slave. Abraham Lincoln was born in a log cabin with a dirt floor.
J.K. Rowling wrote her first pages in a cafe because she could not afford heating. They did not wait for better circumstances. They made the circumstances irrelevant. You are not your current situation. You are what you do with it. If tonight you are tired, if tonight the world seems to have forgotten your name, if tonight the job feels beneath you and the life feels too small, remember Daniel. Remember that the watchman is not a wasted life. The watchman is a prepared life. Do not be embarrassed by your failures. Learn from them and start again. Richard Branson. The gate will open. It always does for those who stay awake long enough to see it. Your watch is not over. It has only just begun. This is your luck.